Jane Eyre chapter 27. Sometime in the afternoon, I looked up, looked around, saw the setting sun painting golden sunset marks on the wall, and asked, "What should I do?" My soul's answer, "Leave Thornfield immediately," was so timely and so terrible that I immediately covered my ears. I said, "I can't stand these words now." My failure to be Mr. Edward Rochester's bride is the smallest part of my pain, I asserted. I can bear the fear of waking up from a beautiful dream and finding that all the water is in vain. Can also be overcome. But I can't bear to leave him immediately without any hesitation. I can't do this. But another voice inside me thought I could do this, and predicted that I should. I pondered this decision, wishing I had been weaker to avoid the terrible path of pain that had been laid out for me. And conscience has become a tyrant, grabbing the throat of passion, telling her mockingly that her beautiful feet have been stuck in the mire, and vowing to use iron arms to push her into the unfathomable abyss of pain. "Then take me away," I shouted. "Let someone else help me." "No, you have to free yourself without anyone to help you. You have to gouge out your right eye yourself, cut off your right hand, sacrifice your heart, and have it pierced by you, the priest." I stood up suddenly, frightened by the loneliness created by such a ruthless judge, and by the silence filled with such terrible sounds. When I stood up straight, I just felt dizzy. I understand that I feel uncomfortable due to excitement and lack of nutrition. I didn't eat breakfast that day, and neither meat nor drink entered my mouth. With an inexplicable pain, I suddenly recalled that even though I had been locked up here for a long time, no one had sent a message to ask how I was doing, or invited me downstairs, not even Adele. Knocked at my door and Mrs. Fairfax did not come to me. "Friends always forget those who are abandoned by fate," I muttered, unlatching the door and walking out. I tripped over something. Because I was still dizzy, my vision was blurred, and my limbs were weak. I couldn't control myself immediately. I fell, but not to the ground, and an outstretched hand caught me. I looked up. I was supported by Mr. Rochester, who sat in a chair at the door of my room. "You finally came out," he said. "Yes, I have been waiting for you for a long time." And I listened carefully, but I heard neither a sound nor a cry. It would be so dead after 5 minutes. "Shen Heng, I'm going to break in like a thief. It seems that you avoid me. You lock yourself up and grieve alone? I would rather you scold me harshly. You are easily emotional, so I guess it will be big, make a scene. I was prepared for you to burst into tears, but I just wanted them to fall on my chest. But now, the unconscious floor or your soaked handkerchief accepted your tears. But I was wrong. You not crying at all. I saw white cheeks and dim eyes, but no tears. So I guess your heart must be crying and bleeding. Listen, Jane, is there not a word of reproach? No harsh, bitter words? No words that dampen the feelings or dampen the passions? You sit quietly where I leave you to sit, looking listlessly at me. Jane, I would never wish to hurt you so much if someone had you as dear as a daughter, eating his bread, drinking his cup, lying in his arms, and by some neglect killing him in the slaughterhouse. His regret for the mistake of blood will never exceed the regret I have now. Can you forgive me, reader? I forgave him right then and there. There was such deep repentance in his eyes, such real regret in his tone, such manly vigor in his manner. Besides, there was such unwavering love in his whole look and demeanor that I forgave him all, but not in words, not openly, but secretly in my heart. "Do you know I'm a scoundrel, Jane?" he asked presently, thoughtfully, surprised, I suppose, at my continued silence, which was a sign of weakness rather than strength of will. "Yes, sir." "Then tell me straight up and without mercy. Don't tolerate me. I can't. I'm tired and uncomfortable. I'd like some water." He sighed shakily, picked me up in his arms, and went downstairs. At first I didn't know which room he was going to take me to. Everything was hazy in my dull eyes. Soon I felt a warm fire return to me, because even though it was summer, I was already cold in my room. He put the wine into my mouth. I tasted it and recovered. Then I ate some of the food he brought me, and I soon recovered. I was in the library, sitting in his chair, and he was next to me. It would be best if I ended my life now without pain, I thought. That way I wouldn't have to break my heartstrings so cruelly that I would end my spiritual connection with Mr. Rochester. Later I would have to leave him. I don't want to leave him, I can't leave him. How are you now, Jane? Better, sir. You'll be fine soon. Try the wine again, Jane. I did as he asked. Then he put the wine glass on the table, stood in front of me, and looked at me intently. Suddenly he turned around, gave a muffled cry of passion, hurried across the room, came back, and bent toward me as if to kiss me, but I remembered that caresses were no longer allowed. I turned my head and pushed his face away. What's going on? He shouted hurriedly. Oh, I know. You don't want to kiss Bertha Mason's husband? Do you think I have someone in my arms, my embrace? In any case, there is no place for me anymore, sir. Why, Jane? I'll save you the trouble of talking and answer it for you, for I already have a wife. And you will answer. Am I right? Yes, if you think this way, you must be prejudiced against me. You must think that I am a scheming prodigal, a vulgar and despicable villain who incites love without true love, draws you into a preset trap, and deprives you of your reputation, destroy your self-esteem. What do you think of this? I think you have nothing to say. First of all, you are still weak, and it will take some time to breathe. Secondly, you are not used to accusing me, insulting me. Besides, the floodgates of tears are wide open. And if you talk too much, tears will burst out, and you have no intention of persuading, rebuking, or making a scene. You are thinking about how to act. You thinking that empty talk is of no use. I know I am on my guard. Sir, I don't want to fight you, I said, my trembling voice warning me to keep my words short. Not in the sense of the word you understand, but in the sense of the word I understand. You are planning to destroy me. You have basically said that I am a married man because of this. You avoid me. Avoid me. Just now you have refused to kiss me. You want to become a complete stranger to me, living in this house only as Adele's governess. If only I had spoken a friendly word to you, if a friendly feeling had made you again to me. You say, that man almost made me his mistress. I must be frosty to him. And then you are really frosty. I cleared my throat and answered him calmly. Everything around me has changed, sir. I must change too. There is no doubt that in order to avoid emotional fluctuations, and to avoid constantly resisting memories and associations, that there is only one solution. Adele must find another governess. Sir, oh, Adele is going to Scully have made arrangements. I have no intention of tormenting you with horrible associations and memories of Thornfield House. Cursed Placetians camp this the arrogant tomb, facing the bright open sky, shows the ghostly aspect of life worse than death. This narrow stone hell, a real devil, worthy of a host of our imaginations. Jane, you don't stay here. I don't stay either. It's my fault that I brought you here even though I knew that Thornfield House was haunted. I ordered them to hide the evils of this place from you before I even met you. Just because I am afraid that as soon as you find out who you live with under the same roof, Adele won't be able to find a female teacher willing to stay here. And my plan does not allow me to move this madman to another place. Even though I own an old house that is quieter and more secluded than this one, called Funding Manor. If I hadn't considered that it was located in the center of the forest and the environment was very unhygienic, and I was ashamed of my conscience to make such an arrangement, I could easily have made her happy. She lives there safely. The damp walls there may soon take her burden off my shoulders. But there are all kinds of villains, and their evil deeds are different. Mine does not consist in indirect murder, even against those who hate me. A person to the core. But to conceal the mad woman's abode from you is just like covering a child with a cloak and placing it next to a curare tree. The devil poisons all around, but only the poison stays. But Thornfield House is to be closed, and I will nail the front door shut, and batten down the low windows. I will give Mrs. Poole £200 a year to live with my wife, the terrible witch you call her. Life. Grace was willing to do many things for money and the company of her son, who was a janitor at Grimsby Asylum. My wife had attacks, such as being inspired by leprechauns to keep people at night. When they were burned to death on the bed, stabbed with knives, and bit the flesh from the bones. Grace at least had a helper by his side. "Sir," I interrupted, "you are so callous to that unfortunate woman. You speak of her with hatred and hatred. It is cruel she cannot help herself in her madness. Jane, my little darling, I will call you so, because you are. You do not understand what you are talking about, and you blame me wrongly. I do not hate her because she is crazy. If you crazy, do you think I will hate you? I think you will, sir. Then you are wrong. You don't know me at all. And you don't know how I will love. Every bit of skin and flesh on your body is as precious to me as my own, and it is the same when I am sick. Your head is my treasure, and if something goes wrong, it will still be my treasure. If you ramble, my arms will be around you. Not a tight waistcoat, even if you scratch and pull in anger, is also charming to me. If you rush towards me like the woman did this morning, I will accept you with a hug. At least it will have the effect of stopping you and showing caressing. I will not be as disgusted as I avoid you as I avoid her, and in your quiet moments you have no guardian, no nurse, but me. I will walk by your side with untiring tenderness, even though you will not reciprocate it. Smile. I will never tire of looking into your eyes, even though they no longer shine a ray of light that confirms me. But why should I think along those lines? I was just talking about letting you leave Thornfield. You know, everything is ready for you to leave here at once. And you will go tomorrow. I only ask you to endure one more night in this room, Jane, and then confess to its pain and pain. A scary farewell. I have somewhere to go, a safe haven from hateful memories, and welcome distractions of fraud and slander. Take Adele with you, sir, I interrupted, and you will have her as a companion. What do you mean, Jane? I told you I was sending Adele to school. Why do I need a child for company? Besides, it's not my child, the bastard of a French dancer. Why are you tangled up with her? I said. Why did you send Adele to be my companion? You talk of retirement, sir, and retirement and solitude are boring. Too boring for you. Alone, alone, he repeated anxiously. I guess I have to explain myself. I don't know what's going on with your face. You know how to be alone like me. You know that. I shook my head. When he was so excited, it took some courage to even risk making a signal of dissent. He walked quickly around the room, then stopped, as if he had suddenly taken root in the same place, and looked at me hard for a long time. I turned my eyes away from him, focused them on the stove, and tried to assume a calm posture. As for Jane's personality disorder, he said at last, calmer than his demeanor might have led me to expect. So far, the thread has been spinning smoothly enough, but I've always known there would be knots and knots, and here they are. Now I'm faced with annoyance, anger, and endless trouble. God, I really want to use some of Samson's strength to cut through the mess with a sharp sword. He started walking again, but soon stopped, this time right in front of me. Jane, will you listen to me? He bent down and leaned close to my ear. Because if you don't listen, I will use violence. His voice was hoarse, and his expression seemed to break through intolerable restraints, recklessly and boldly. I had seen this happen on another occasion, and if there had been any more wild impulse, I would have been powerless against him. At this moment, I can only control him in an instant, otherwise. An action that expresses disgust, avoidance and cowardice will kill myself, and him, one by one. Yet I wasn't afraid, not at all. I felt an inner strength and momentum supporting me. Desperate times are often dangerous, but not without charm, as the Indians felt when rafting through the rapids. I held his tightly squeezed hand, loosened his twisted fingers, and said to him soothingly, "Sit down. I will talk to you as long as you like. Whatever you want to say, no matter whether it is reasonable or not, I will listen to you." He sat down, but I didn't let him speak right away. I had been holding back my tears for a long time, trying my best not to let them flow down, because I knew he didn't like to see me cry. But now I think it's better to let the tears flow freely, as long as I love them. If a burst of tears made him angry, so much the better. So I let myself go and cried my heart out. Soon I heard him sincerely begging me to calm down. I said he was so angry that I couldn't calm down. But I'm not angry, Jane. I just love you so much. I can't stand that pale little face of yours that looks so dull. be quiet, and, oh, wipe your eyes. His tone softened, indicating that he had restrained himself, so I calmed down. At this time he tried to put his head on my shoulder, but I didn't allow it, and then he tried to pull me over. No, Jane, he said. The tone was so sad that every nerve in me trembled. So you don't love me anymore. All you value is my status, and my status is my wife. Now that you think I'm not worthy of being your husband, you're afraid that I'll touch you, as if I'm some kind of toad or ape. These words made me feel uncomfortable, but what could I do or say? Maybe I should do nothing and say nothing. But I was tortured by regret that I had hurt his feelings, and I could not suppress my desire to put a plaster on the wound I had created. I do love you, I said, more than I have ever loved you, but I must never show or condone such feelings. This is the last time I will express them. For the last time, Jane. What? Do you think you can live with me, see me every day, and at the same time love me, but always remain cold and distant? No, sir. I certainly can't. So I think there's only one way, but you'll get angry if I say it. Oh, tell me. Even if I get angry, you can cry too. Mr. Rochester, I must leave you. How long will you be gone, Jane? Just a few minutes to comb your disheveled hair and wash your face that looks a little feverish. I must leave Adele and Thornfield. I must leave you forever and ever. I must start a new life among strange faces and strange surroundings. Of course, I told you you should. I don't care about your crazy talk of leaving. What you mean is that you have to become a part of me. As for a new life, that's great, but you have to become mine. Wife, I have never been married. You are to be Mrs. Rochester in name only. As long as you and I live, I will only keep you. You get a place I own in the south of France, a white-walled building on the shores of the Mediterranean. Villa, there will be someone watching over you there, and you will live a carefree and happy life. There is no need to worry that I will seduce you into being my mistress. Why are you shaking your head? Jane, you have to be reasonable, otherwise I will really go crazy again. His voice and hands are trembling. His big nostrils are flaring, and his eyes are burning. But I still dared to say, sir, your wife is still alive. This is a fact that you yourself admitted this morning. If I live with you as you wish, I will become your mistress. Any other statement is sophistry, a deception. Jane, I am not a mild-tempered person. You forget that. I cannot bear it for long. I am not calm, nor an emotionless person. Have mercy on me and yourself, and put your finger on take my pulse. Feel how it beats. And watch out. He bared his wrist and stretched it toward me. His cheeks and lips were pale from blood loss. I was in a dilemma and very distressed. Goad him with the rejection he hates. It would be cruel. It would be impossible to give in. I did what a desperate person would instinctively do. I turned to a higher than mortal God for help. God help me. The words came out of my mouth. How foolish I am, said Mr. Rochester suddenly. I always told her that I was never married, but never explained why. I forgot that she had no idea of that woman's character or the background of my hellish union with her. Oh, I'm sure that once Jane knew, knowing everything I know, she'll agree with me. Put your hand in mine, Jeanette, so I have contact and eye contact to prove you're next to me, and I'll use in just a few words. I will tell you the truth. Can you listen to me? Yes, sir, I'll listen to you for hours. I only ask for a few minutes. Jane, have you heard or known that I am not the eldest brother in the family, but that I have a brother who is older than me? I remember Mrs. Fairfax told me once. Have you ever heard that my father was a greedy man? I have a rough idea. Well, Jane, out of greed, my father was determined to keep his property together and could not bear to divide it, leaving me a considerable part. He decided that everything should go to my brother Roland, but he could not bear to have me as his son. I was left pauper and had to settle my livelihood through a wealthy marriage. Soon after, he found a partner for me. He had an old acquaintance named Mr. Mason, a plantation owner and merchant in the West India. He made his inquiries. Mr. Mason's family must be very rich. He found out that Mr. Mason had a pair of children, and knew that he could and was willing to give his daughter £30,000 of property, which was enough. As soon as I left college, I was sent to Jamaica, with I was getting married to a bride who had been wooed for me. My father said nothing about her money, but he told me that Miss Mason was a beauty in Spanish Town, and it was true. She was a beauty, and had Blanche England, Grimm's style, tall, dark skin, graceful and luxurious. Her family also wanted to get me because I was from a good background, just like her. They brought her to the party to show me, dressed up in a gorgeous way. It was rare for me to be alone. I rarely talk to her in private when I see her. She compliments me and deliberately shows off her beauty and talent to please me. The men in her circle seem to be attracted by her and envious of me. I am dazzled and excited, my senses were stimulated. Because of my naivety and inexperience, I thought I was in love with her. Stupid competition in social circles, young people's lust, recklessness and blindness will make people do all kinds of stupid things. I had to come out. Her relatives encouraged me, my rivals provoked me. She came to seduce me. And before I knew what was going on, the marriage was decided. Oh, I lose my self-respect at the thought of such behavior. 1. I was overwhelmed by a pain of self-contempt in my heart. I had never loved her, respected her, or even understood her. I was not sure whether there was a virtue in her nature, in her heart, or I saw neither humility nor kindness nor candor and elegance in my manners. And I married her. How vulgar and spineless I was. What a blind fool I was. If only I had not been so guilty. Maybe I've already, but let me remember who I'm talking to. I had never met the mother of the bride, and I thought she was dead. But after the honeymoon, I discovered that I was mistaken. She was just crazy and was in a lunatic asylum. My wife also had a brother who was not talking idiot. The brother you saw, although I hate his relatives, I don't hate him. Because there is still a lot of love in his weak soul, which is shown in his constant concern for his poor sister. And my once dog-like attachment to me would probably one day come to this. My father and my brother Roland knew all this, but they only thought of £30,000, and they conspired to deceive me. These are ugly discoveries, but, apart from the deceitful concealment of the truth, I do not blame my wife for them. Although I find her personality incompatible with mine, her tastes repulsive to me, and her temperament is mediocre, low, and narrow, and it is completely impossible to lead to higher places and develop to wider places. I find it impossible to spend an evening or even an hour with her comfortably. There is no sincere dialogue between us, because, talk about any topic, and you will immediately get a response from her that is vulgar and corny, weird and stupid. I found that I will never have a quiet and stable home, because no servant can tolerate her constant violent and unreasonable temper. The annoyance caused by her absurd, contradictory, and harsh orders. Even then, I restrained myself. I avoided reproach, reduced my exhortations, and quietly swallowed my remorse and disgust. I suppressed my revulsion. Jane, I don't want to bother you with annoying details. What I have to say can be expressed in a few fierce words. I lived upstairs with that woman for 4 years, and before that she tortured me to death. Her character matured and developed in a frightening way. Her misdeeds were endless and so serious that they could only be stopped by brutal means. And I could not bear to see her intelligence so weak, and her impulses so powerful. What terrible misfortune those impulses had wrought upon me! Bertha Mason, the true daughter of a disreputable mother, had drawn me into the abyss of appalling depravity and misery. A man who was both indulgent and vulgar. The union of wives is bound to be doomed. During this time my brother died, and for years later my father. I have since become rich and now and at the same time terribly poor. The most vulgar, filthy, and base attributes I have ever seen are the same as mine. Linked together, called a part of me by law and society. I could not get rid of it by any legal process, because the doctors then discovered that my wife was crazy. Her wantonness had precociously ripened the seeds of madness. Jane, you don't like my narrative. You almost look disgusted. Should we talk about the rest another day? No. Sir, finish it now. I pity you sincerely. Pity, when the word comes from some people's mouth, Jane, it is annoying and insulting. And there is every reason to return it to the person who said it. But it is the pity of a selfish and heartless person. The self-centered pain that rises after a disaster is mixed with a blind contempt for the victim. But this is not your pity, Jane. This is not what is reflected in your face at this moment. Your eyes are filled with joy at this moment. What is there? What beats within you? What makes your hands tremble is another feeling. My darling, your pity is the painful mother of love. Its pain is the birth pangs of divine love. I accept. Come on, Jane. Let that daughter be born free. My arms are ready to receive her. Okay, sir, go on. What will you do when you find out that she is crazy? Jane, I have reached the edge of despair. And the only thing that can separate me from the abyss is my self-esteem. In the eyes of the world, there is no doubt that my reputation has been ruined. But I am determined to remain innocent in my own eyes. I finally refusing to accept the contamination of her sin, breaking free from her neurological deficit. But society still binds my name, myself, to her, and I still see her and hear her every day. Part of her breathing few, mingled in the air I breathed. Besides, I remembered that I had been her husband in association that was and still is unspeakably abhorrent to me. And I knew that as long as she lived, I could never be a husband to another better wife. Even though she is 5 years older than me, her family and her father even lied to me about the details of her age. She will most likely live as long as I do, because although her mind was weak, her body was strong. So at the age of 26, I was completely hopeless. I was awakened one night by her screams. She was, of course, locked up since the doctors declared her mad. It was a fiery night in the West Indies, the kind of weather that often precedes hurricanes. I couldn't sleep, so I got up and opened the window. The air was like sulfurous vapor. It was so depressing everywhere. Mosquitoes came buzzing in and swirled around the room gloomily. From there I could hear the ocean. The sound rumbled dully like an earthquake. Black clouds gathered over the sea, and the moon sank on the broad red waves, like a hot cannonball, casting a bloody gaze at the trembling ocean that was brewing a storm. I was indeed deeply affected by this atmosphere and scenery, but my ears were filled with the curses screamed by madmen. The curses were mixed with my name. The tone was so full of hatred, and the language was so dirty. No prostitute who works as a prostitute would use more filthy words than her. Even though we were 2 rooms apart, I could hear every word clearly. The thin partitions of the West Indies could not stop her at all. Howling like a wolf. This life, I said at last, is hell. Such is the air and the sound of the abyss. I had the right to free myself, if I could. The pain of this world, together with the weight of the body that weighs down my soul, will leave me. Go. I have no fear of the hellfire of the fanatics. The future will not be worse than the present. Let me out and go back to God. As I spoke, I squatted down next to a box and opened the lock. Inside the box were a pair of loaded hands. I wanted to shoot myself, but the idea only lasted for a while, because I was not crazy. The crisis that roused suicidal thoughts and made me despair was over in an instant. The wind that just came from Europe blew across the ocean and passed through the spacious windows. The storm came, heavy rain, thunder and lightning, and the air became fresh. Then I imagined and made up my mind. I was in the wet garden with water drops into the ticking orange trees, walking among the sodden pomegranates and pineapples, with the bright tropical dawn burning round me. And I thought, Jane, oh, listen. In that moment true wisdom soothed me, showed me the right path. The sweet phoenix blowing from Europe whispers among the exceptionally fresh leaves, and the Atlantic Ocean roars freely. My heart, which has long been dry and anxious, relaxes in response to that voice and is filled with living blood. My body yearns for new life, my soul longs for nectar. I see hope revived, feel the possibility of rebirth. From under the arched pergola at the top of the garden, I look at the sea, it's bluer than the sky. The old world is far away, go, a clear prospect unfolds before you. So, go away, said Hope, and go and live in Europe, where your sullied name will not be known, and no one will know that you are burdened with sordidness. You can take the madman to England and close the door. At Thornfield, give due care and vigilance. Then travel to wherever you like and make new connections that you like. That woman has allowed you to suffer so long, so disgraced your reputation, so violated your honor, so ruined. your youth. She is not your wife, and you are not her husband. Make sure that she is cared for according to her condition, and you have done everything God and mankind ask of you. Let her identity and her relationship with you be forever known. Forget. Never tell this to any living soul. Place her somewhere safe and comfortable, quietly hide her depravity, and leave her. I followed this advice exactly. My father and brother did not reveal the details of my marriage to their old acquaintances, because in my first letter to them I informed them of my marriage already beginning to feel its most disagreeable consequences, and seeing in the character and constitution of the family a terrible prospect for me. I incidentally urged them to keep their secret strictly confidential. Soon the scandalous behavior of the wife my father had chosen for me became apparent to me. It has reached this point, and he is ashamed to accept her as his wife. Far from making a big deal about this relationship, he is as eager as I am to cover it up. Then I sent her to England, and had a terrible voyage on board a ship with such a monster. I was very happy to finally get her to Thornfield, where she lives safely in a room on the 3rd floor. The inner sanctum has been turned into a den of beasts, a secret chamber of monsters by her for 10 years. I went through a lot of troubles to find someone to serve her. It is necessary to choose a loyal and reliable person, because her ravings will inevitably reveal my secret. Besides, she had lucid days, sometimes weeks, when she would scold me all the time. Finally, I hired Grace Poole from Grimsby Asylum. She and the surgeon Carter who bandaged Mason's wound that night when he was stabbed and worried. These two alone, I let them know the secret of my heart. Mrs. Fairfax may have been suspicious, but she could not get the facts. Overall, Grace proved to be a good housekeeper, but perhaps because of the grueling errand and the hopeless flaws that came with it, she let her guard down more than once and something went wrong. The madman was cunning and vicious, and never missed an opportunity to take advantage of the caretaker's temporary inattention. On one occasion she secretly stabbed her brother with a knife, and on 2 occasions she obtained the key to her little room and escaped from it at night. On the first occasion above, she deliberately burned me to death in my bed. On the second occasion, she found you at your door. I thank God for protecting you. Then she put her fire on your wedding dress, which perhaps made her hazy. I remember the days when I was a bride. As for what might have happened, I can't bear to think about it anymore. When I think of the thing that jumped at my throat in the morning, I think of it leaning its black and red face into my baby's nest. At that time, my blood clotted.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.